I mean, come on, people.
Okay, Kathy, I'll start then.
Would you like me to introduce you?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
I'm speaking to my chest.
Okay. Well, I'll stand over here because this is when people. Hi, good morning. How's everybody doing? So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Chef Richard Reynolds, and I'm going to give you a bio of his experience. Chef Reynolds started cooking professionally in 1969. After several years in the industry, he decided to make it legitimate and attended the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York, graduating in 1976. Rather than travel the typical route of a graduate, Chef Reynolds took a position in a European kitchen as a commis de cuisine, which is in the kitchen hierarchy just above an apprentice. There he worked under various chefs, honing his craft one station at a time, mastering the garde-manger, sauté, tournat, saucier, entremetier, and pastry positions. In 2002, Chef Reynolds received the American Culinary Federation certification for executive chef. The majority of Chef Reynolds' career has been in the service of starred restaurants, hotels, and country clubs, and as well as recipe development for major corporations such as General Mills, Pillsbury, and Peppetti Eggs, and he's also hosted a holiday cooking program, for public television. Chef Reynolds served as Director of Education at the Restaurant School at Walnut Hill College in Philadelphia and taught both culinary and pastry arts, and currently we all have the privilege of him serving as our campus executive chef and assistant director of dining at the college at Brockport. So, without further ado, here's Richard.
Thank you. What a guy. All righty, well, today we're going to be playing with sugar. It's always fun. You know, one of my philosophies, and I think at the College of Brockport, is that, you know, these types of things aren't things you may pull out and use every day, like cheeseburgers or pepperoni pizza. But on the other end of it, you know, I think it's great that, and I think it's very good to be teaching our cooks and our chefs, and even to keeping our skills as, you know, executive chefs, you know, honed and practicing these types of things. And they actually do come in handy. We actually do use them. We did several sculptures for the inauguration of our new president. And we have a lot of other things with thematic. We use them for wows and monotony breakers and such as well. So today we're going to be doing what's called sugar casting. There's sugar pulling, there's blown sugar, where if you've ever seen like the Corning glass commercials, where instead of using that, they use molten sugar in order to do that, and they create everything out of there from fish to ornaments and that type of thing. Sugar casting, I believe, in my opinion, is one of the easier ones. I've given one of my colleagues here one of the silicone mats that, and in the back here you'll see the company called Chicago Mold Company. I don't get any money from them, but they're really the premier company out there that makes these types of molds. They're heat-proof, cold-proof. You can cast chocolate in them as well if you wanted to do something out of chocolate. You know, we do that quite often. It's interesting, I started doing chocolate casting with some of the chefs at Brockport, and over the years to watch them how they've improved in the process of doing that has really been great. So this is the smaller one, which is the dancing couple I hand carried. It wrapped in a lot of bubble wrap, and I'm very impressed that it made it this far. I didn't try to do that with the other one, so let me see if I can move this without something horrible happening. Alrighty. Now your notes here talks about what sugar casting is, and then it also talks about isomalt versus sugar. Now, again, I believe isomalt was developed somewhere in around 1980, so it hasn't been around a great deal of time. And for all the chemistry geeks, I put a lot of good information in there for you. But the main thing to know about isomalt is that it's much easier to handle when making sculptures and working with it than sugar. And the main reason for that is that sugar is hygroscopic, so it draws in moisture from the air. So if I made the sugar piece that you saw back here, in about 3 days in the humidity, it would just be like a sticky, lollipop. It wouldn't be very good at all. But these pieces, I cast a couple of days back, and they're still, very solid, and they're not tacky and ready to put together. One of the other things I do is I buy packets of what's called desiccant, those annoying little things you get when you buy something electronic that always falls out, and you think, oh, it's a packet of gum or something. Yeah. And so if I make pieces ahead of time, in case you ever decide to try this, and because putting them together is the easy part. So once you have them cast, you can take these and put them into, I wrap them in bubble wrap, put them in a bag with a couple packets of the desiccant. They're good for weeks and weeks on end. So just one thing. Now, I didn't want to bore you with watching sugar boil, so I've already pre-boiled some of the isomalt. I will refer to it probably back and forth between the isomalt and sugar, but it is isomalt. And I'm holding it here at 270 degrees. The isomalt gets cooked much higher than regular sugar. It gets cooked to 160 degrees Celsius or 320 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you take the pot, and I have usually a bowl of ice, and I just put it in the bowl of ice for about 30 seconds, and it stops the rest of the cooking. So then your trick is to keep it at the same temperature, or to keep it around 270 degrees. And what I'll do then is use a combination, of course, heat here and a microwave. I also use these types of Pyrex because they're heat proof. You can pour boiling 360 degree stuff in here, and they're not going to crack on you. And they have nice little spouts for pouring as well. So before I show you the technique for actually pouring into the silicone mold, this is one that I cast, and I see that of course, after I've done this and got it here, I said I should have done it in a darker color. So I poured these in before I left Brockport, and I only did part of them because what I wanted was some backup pieces. I chose, and I said, I think, if I lose one of these on the way. So let's pretend that we've done the pouring part, although we should have done that first. Once these are fully cooled and set up, the technique for removing them are very simple. You just start peeling them back from the silicone, like so, and gently work the pieces out, and there you have a piece. Right on. Now, these little centerpieces are part of the mold, and they actually, will stick back in there. You wash these with warm soap and water, rinse them, and then I shake them, and I just put them in an oven for about 5 minutes at any degree. It doesn't matter, 300, 350 degrees, just to make sure they're dry. Wrap them in a bag so that their dust won't get them in them, and they're ready to go the next time. And you can use these, as I was explaining earlier, you can cast chocolate, tempered chocolate in this as well. It does not work well with chocolate coatings, however, so you don't want to try to use those things that you get at the store to dip strawberries in, that type of stuff. So, all righty. Just going to remove a couple more pieces here. All in all, the sugar is actually pretty sturdy. You really have to swing it around. There are some smaller, finer pieces in this up near the end. So you want to be careful when you're removing those. At the end, you're welcome to come up and take a look at some of these items and touch them and feel them and see what they're like. Actually, this is not clear. It has little gold flecks in it as well, so that makes it look very unusual. All right. Excuse me. All right, so you have your mat. It's all clean, it's all dry. You have all the little inserts where you want them. And what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the molten sugar, the melted sugar, isomalt, and we're going to color it. So I have some of the gel food coloring here. You don't want oil base. You could use powdered food color mixed with a little bit of alcohol, if you like. You can always add more. You don't want to put in too much unless you want it very, very dark. And pretty much today I'm going to be pouring single colors into them, but when you see these particular pieces up close, you see that I started with green and went into a red, and there's different types of swirls that you can do with contrasting colors in them as well. I don't know how well that shows up, but again, you're welcome to come up when we have it assembled and take a look. Okay. Like it says at the top of your paper there that I gave you, you need to be very, very careful with this stuff. It is hot. It will do damage, so you have to be careful. It's many times when you put it in with the coloring, it can splatter, although I have let this cool a little bit. There we go. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking the excess and pouring it out onto a baker's paper lined sheet tray. And when that cools, we can crush it back up and melt it again and use it. And if you keep to dedicated colors, you can also break these up. And again, you know, we have something called a buffalo chopper. It's a big industrial chopper. I just put it in one end and around the other until it almost pulverizes it. Unfortunately, you don't want to mix colors because you don't know what you'll come up with unless you're really good with your art. You know that you get orange by putting brown and something yellow together, or whatever it may be. I'm not good with that kind of stuff. So we have our colored isomalt at just the right temperature. It's about 270 degrees now. Remember, we had it up to 320. And what you want to make sure is that you let it sit for a while. If you pour it immediately, once it hits the temperature and you arrest the cooling at that time, it's going to have a bunch of bubbles in it from the boiling process. And not that, you know, at a college or for the kids, it might be just fine. But if we're going to put this into competition and such, you want to make sure that you don't have those bubbles in there. And the other aspect of it is that when you go to put this together, we're going to assemble it with a torch. And we literally melt the pieces and then build it. And if you have too large of air bubbles on the inside, you hit it with a torch, that expands and it cracks. So hopefully we won't be experiencing that today. I have had one of these implode on me. All right. I'm going to start with some of these pieces here. Are you able to get in on this? Oh man, relatively closely. And it's really quite simple. Again, these pieces you do with the smaller ones that are going to be used for decoration. You don't have to worry too much about how thick they are. You probably want them at least 1/4 of an inch of the mold filled. But these other structural pieces, like the base, which is, you know, this piece here is the base and such. And also the other parts that are used to build that, you're going to want to have them at full thickness because they're going to be supporting the majority of the weight. So, I purposely did not have coffee this morning. So I make sure I can hit the target. Now if you do overfill a little bit and some of it spills over the edge or you drizzle on the edge, not a big deal. Those are cool. When it comes out, you can break off the extraneous pieces. And believe it or not, it can actually have some pretty sharp edges. I just hit it with a torch for just a couple of seconds. Getting the very little ends of this thing here, that's the tricky part, without getting it all over the place. Look at that. Boy, those are steady hands. Hands of a surgeon, right? All right, and then we'll do one of the larger pieces here. This particular mold, they entitled, I believe it's called Flame. So I built on that during the inauguration. It says the flames of knowledge burning into the students' minds, or something like that, where they say, there we go. So you get the idea. Once you have all these filled, then you let it be. It probably takes several hours for it to fully cool, and then you're ready to go. You're ready to break them out of the mold, so to speak, just like I said, and start assembling. Or if you're not going to assemble them right away, wrap them in bubble wrap, put them in some kind of an airtight container with some desiccant, and you could come back a couple weeks later. Used to be when we were, I was a young pastry chef, that we wouldn't do any sugar work during the humid months of the year in the spring and that type of thing. You just wouldn't even bother. People would say, "Can I get a, full sugar bowl on my candy box," or whatever they were having. It's like, no, it's not going to work this time of year. So, but with this isomalt, it's pretty, as I said, pretty indestructible and easy to use. So we'll set this over here, and we will start with the assembly process. Any questions so far?
Richard, you have a small mold in the front of your burner there. Is that one to make something that's like completely round? Or
I'm glad you asked, Kathy. Yes, when you get online to this particular company, Chicago Mold, they have all sorts of different mold. I mean, everything that you could possibly imagine, from dragonflies to butterflies to spheres of all different sizes and such. And this is a sphere mold, and it comes in two parts. When you put it together, you can use this to, again, you can mold chocolate in it if you want, which is a lot of fun. And what I molded in that to use to give this some depth and such, and I don't know if you can see it here, but basically it looks like a Christmas ornament. So we're going to see if we can attach this to our carving today, and thank you for reminding me of that. I don't know, did everybody get a chance to see what isomalt looks like there? Tyler? Okay.
Chef, how long does it take for that ball to mold?
You mean to harden?
Yeah.
Well, you want to, especially with that, with these molds that we did cast these in, they can still be warm and you can take them out, but the other ones you want to fully cool, and it all depends on the ambient temperature of the kitchen and such, but you want it to, you're talking, I'm going to say at least 2 hours.
Okay.
And remember, it's not supposed to be solid. If you poured it, and you could fill it up with sugar, molten sugar right to the top. If that, you're probably talking at least overnight. You'd want to hold it, but then it'd be very
Put
heavy.
stuff in it and then pour it out, so if you wanted to make it hollow.
That's exactly what I do, yeah.
Okay.
Do here, we can try some of that. Yeah. Let me, give you an example there. Want to make sure it's fully sealed, and again, you might want to have protected, PPI protection equipment on your hands or something when you're doing this, unless you feel very confident in it. So, I'm not going to be able to mold this, but the technique for filling this is I usually bring it up about halfway full on both sides. I guess you could cast one if you wanted to. And then what I do is I take the mold, and I'm looking inside of it right now. I'm sorry, I wish I could show you up close, and you can see it come to the opening of the holes. So I'm trying to make sure the thing gets completely coated on the inside, like so. And once that's done, I turn it upside down and I let it drain. Now once it's drained, I'll turn it upside down again. Make sure that if I have to use a toothpick or something to poke a hole in here, because at the entrance you want to make sure that it's no longer, and usually what it did just now, you just pop it like a little bubble, and you're good to go. And then I'll turn it upside down and I'll leave it on top of that so that it coats the inside again and makes sure that it has structure. Now you can do multiple coatings. I'll do the gold fleck first, and then I'll come back with a light red, and you can come up with all sorts of different textures and looks to the piece. Now for the fun part. You can use your the big propane torch if you like. If you're going to use that, I suggest you get, I forget what they call it, but it keeps the gas at a certain level so you can turn the torch upside down without it going out. And also they have single triggers on them as well. So you can just pick it up with one hand and use it while you're holding the other parts of the sculpture, which is helpful. This little torch is one of those things you get at some little cook shop for making creme brulee at home. It works fine, and that's what I'm going to use today. But every time I go to light it, I've got to pull out this little safety thing because they don't trust folks in their kitchens at home to be able to do this without hurting themselves. So, or forgetting to turn the torch on and burning up the dog or something. So, all right, on this, we're going to start with the base first. And what you're doing here basically is you're sticking together big pieces of lollipop. Okay? And yes, you could flavor them if you wanted to, and then break them up and you repeat anyway. But
So the isomalt is edible?
isomalt is edible. It is not as, it explains it in the paper I gave you all, but it's not as sweet as sugar. It's one of those things because of its hygroscopic qualities that they use to make things like cough drops, lollipops, other types of pastry goods. It does not brown. I mean, you could probably, I'm sure you could take it up high enough where it would finally brown, but I mean, at 360 degrees, you'd have blackjack, which is when you burn sugar to the point where it turns to carbon. So, all right. Now, the trick with this is to make sure that you keep both areas just right. Just enough to make them tacky. And what I'm doing here is just making sure that I have them perpendicular. Okay, there we go, one down. Fall out, I'm done. You know, your biggest fear, especially when you're doing this in public, is that you'll be able to put that last, we'll just put this one last piece here and then the whole thing just goes. My poor wife has been talking me off the ledge for a week. Yes, thank you very much. She came in to talk me off the ledge today.
If you did make a mistake, did you take it off and, or is it like an ear now?
It's pretty much
Yeah.
there. Especially as you start to put more pieces together, then structurally it's holding it all together. So, but you know, the mistake is only if somebody knows that you made one. And I've been saying, well, you know, if one piece breaks, I just put something else together. So.
Chef, from that mold, can you make more than just what this picture is on here?
Yes.
In other words, you can just group whatever you want.
Yes.
See?
Exactly. You can put these together any way you want. Excuse me while I get this piece on.
I just wondered, what did that mold run you cost like?
$265.
Okay.
You know, but you look at it, if you're going to do an ice carving these days, a block of ice is that much, and this you can reuse forever. So every time you use it, you know, by now it's down to $50 a sculpture that I've done, and I keep making more.
How many times do you use that mold that you have right there?
You can use it forever, basically, as long as you take good care of it. You know, they'll tell you that eventually it will wear out, but the number of times you use it in a lifetime,
Hand wash it or?
Yep, just mild soapy water. And as I was saying before, you just shake it dry, and then I put it onto a sheet tray or a wire rack and put it in the oven for, 350 degrees for a few minutes, just to make sure it's evaporated. You don't have to, there's no prep involved with it, you don't have to grease it, line it, do anything to it. And and then I just put it into a bag till the next time I need it. And I have my people make, this is just real thin plywood, so I keep it on that on the baker's rack when I'm not using it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, that looks pretty solid. All right, now we'll start assembling some of the flames and see what happens here. If you go online to the Chicago Mold website, they have a link to YouTube, and they go through all this, boiling the sugar, putting many of these different pieces together. You don't have to put it together in the fashion you see me doing it, but I'm not going to try anything fancier today. But no, you can assemble them in a lot of different fashion, or cast more pieces and add them on if you want. I mean, I've seen some of the pastry chefs actually take one of these and then attach it up here and just keep on building it. If you're going to do something like that, then I would take the base here and I would actually attach it with a little bit of sugar to something so that you know it's going to be wide enough and firm enough that it won't topple over on you. Because the base itself, when you see it, is not that big. I've also taken those silicone cake pans that you can buy at stores these days, you know, the ones they're like rubber and whatever, and I filled those, you know, about an inch with isomalt as a base for one of these sculptures as well. So I also suggest that if you are going to use it somewhere, that you actually assemble it on the spot where you're going to be you know, showing it. It takes, you know, I mean, I'm talking in between doing this, but I timed myself from start to finish with a cool piece. It was like 18 minutes I was able to put it together.
Does it have a shelf life? Does it turn, like, colors fade or anything like that, or?
Colors will not fade. If exposed to too much humidity, they will get a cloudy look to them, but hasn't gone bad or anything like that. Okay. I can pull on them, we're not going to need it. The other thing you can do is have a can of your keyboard cleaner. You know, if you want to have it to actually. Okay. Doing good so far, folks. Think we have it so far? Sorry, I'm not chatty when I'm trying to push it to hold together.
So Chef, you said that you should assemble it on site, is that before it was,
They're pretty difficult to try and move. I mean, there's so much tension on the wells, so to speak, that you know, I'm not saying you couldn't melt it enough and put it together where you could actually, you know, carry it somewhere. But I mean, you've seen on those shows on TV after they make these big sculptures and then say, now you got to move them 15 feet, and how many of them actually make it across the kitchen? So yeah, I would recommend doing it that way.
does, you said the ambient temperature affects?
Oh, it's cold out, yes, yes. I mean, that's another aspect. If it has a lot of bubbles in it especially, and it contracts too much and such, it can cause, so the point is you don't want to be going through any really cold, breezy hallways, you know, if you are trying to move it or something like that, which I found out the hard way. So.
Do you know if there's any companies that will, like if you sent in something that you wanted them to create a mold for you? If you had
Chicago
a
mold,
special
yeah.
occasion or
Yes.
something that you knew?
Yes, if you have your school logo or any of this stuff, they'll make you molds of different sizes, so you can have like, you know, small ones that have like 12 of the medallions of your colleges. Good catch. So that if you want to do little chocolates or something like that, they can make those for you. Okay, we have an issue.
Yeah, here. Hold it. Got it? Or can I hold it steady on there?
We'll see.
This is real TV.
Yes,
You don't get this on the food.
you don't? I planned this. I planned this, folks.
It's all edited.
Who knows? Okay, how are we looking here? What do you think? All right. Yay. I told my colleagues I was going to have a live. All right, let's see if I can get these all to play nice here. What's our time at this point? Am I doing good?
10:18.
Who?
10:18.
10:18.
Do you use these often up at the college?
No, not that often. You know, as I said, for WOWs or different types of things, I'll bring these out when we do like the Valentine's WOW, do the dancing couple we'll be doing this year. Some of these as well.
How many molds do you have?
Right now, just 3.
Richard did one for the president's inauguration and the reception. It was beautiful.
You know, we actually did a dual one that day.
Yeah.
And it was nice. It had butterflies on it and snapdragons and everything. When you go to the website for Chicago Mold, you'll see those.
Oh, wow.
And they're pretty cool.
Are they popular as centerpieces for weddings and things these days, or?
Yeah.
biggest one that you've ever done of the sugar?
Well, you mean freehand, where I've had to do it from scratch using neoprene mats and making my own molds and such, about 5 feet. That was when I was young and full of energy.
Last year?
Yeah. God bless you. All right, let's see what we can do here without having a little dimension to this. These were some added pieces I had left over from the dancing couple. Doesn't want to play nice. See, I'm going off script. I'm going to pay for this. Come on, you can do it. By the way, you get white using powdered titanium, in case anybody's wondering. Here we go. All right. What do you think? Should I leave well enough alone or stick a few more pieces on there and see if we can...
That's great.
So, anyhow, I think I'm going to stop here while I'm ahead. Unfortunately, we are going to be destroying this when it's done, so feel free to come up, look, touch, feel, you know, I'll turn my, if I hear crack, I'll just look the other way, it's fine. Anyway, you can see what the pieces look like and feel like, and I appreciate you all coming. Is there any questions, other questions about this? I do have my information on the front of the packet. If anybody has any questions, suggestions, or you're not too far from Rockport and want to do something with some of your staff, I'd be willing to come out and do some of that. As I said, there's also really great information on the YouTube under Chicago Mold Company. And if you go to their website, of course, you'll see all the many, many molds they have. Plus, they also, if you want to make your own, they have all the chemicals that you need in order to form your own mold. So if there's something special, like some school mascot or something there's a statue of and you want to make something, then you can do that as well. But they will also do custom pieces for you. So thank you very much. I appreciate you all coming, and feel free to come up and take a look at some of this stuff and feel and poke everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you can, sure, yeah. You just want to, again, remember this is a small base, you don't want to secure it or create a larger base. And it could even be in a free-form stock pan and such. And then, yes, you could attach them to the side, but you want to be careful of your balance, because if you put too much weight, then it could topple. How much heat time do you need before the pointy or for, when you say, I'm sorry, heat time with the torch? Yeah, how much time do you get with the foot before you have to worry about affecting? Well, you try to use a pinpoint torch, so what you're doing is you're getting it right at the end. And I can see it when you're real close. So, for instance, when you're heating this, you'll see it start to turn sort of glassy.
Yeah.
we're getting to that point.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
I failed to do what I was explaining to everybody, which was to turn it upside down, so if you look at this thing, you can see that it's solid on the bottom. I should have, I neglected, I was busy doing several things at once and didn't get it upside down, but still.
Yeah, I'm
kind of upside down.
I know.
Where do you think your house
Yes, you could. Exactly. I get my ice from all the Walmart Foods, which is in Rochester. However, you can go online and you can find companies, and I gave you some companies all around that.
Because I found it Amazon.
Yeah, and it's pretty expensive.
It's pretty expensive.
Yeah. So I mean, if you think you're going to use it or wait to last for some other option, just ship it, or maybe one of those foods like ship
And you just have to go online and see what those lots are.
If we're going to do lunch.
I'm just telling you, those guys, I saw that.
Very good.
We can. I can make a copy of it.